G'day guys, welcome back to Offroad Crusader. This episode is really the first, I suppose, modification video for the big 200, and I'm very excited. We're going to be doing some, one of them is definitely a necessity, the other one is personal preference and necessity, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. An essential thing you need when out four-wheel driving is going to be communications with those around you, and if you need to get in contact with anyone else broader. Best and most common thing to use is a UHF. So some sort of UHF communications is essential in my book. I do have a little handheld that I use, but the range of that, and also the fact that it runs off batteries, so obviously you need to always charge it, is a downside. And you really want a hard mounted UHF in the car, because not only are you going to get much better transmission and receiving power, but you'll get more features and you don't have to worry about it running out of power like you would with a little handheld. You have to charge it up all the time. So this is the GME XRS-370. I went this model because 370 is more than 330, and we all know more numbers is better. Example, 120 series, 200 series. The other benefits of the GME XRS is an awesome unit because it uses Bluetooth and connect to your phone. Basically allows you to do like location tracking. You can download all of your emergency services channels beforehand before you go to different places, and allows you to basically configure the unit and configure the app and do lots of fun little stuff. So I wanted to go that with it. There are two options with the XRS. There's the XRS-330 and the XRS-370. There's a few little differences between it. The main difference is the 330 comes with a plastic case around the unit, and the only speaker is in the handpiece, whereas the 370 is a metal cased unit, and you also get a speaker inside the actual UHF unit itself that goes under the dash. I think there's a few other little differences, but that's the main ones I was concerned about. So I wanted the extra speaker because when you're trying to listen to someone, the more noise of them you can hear, the better. So I went the 370, and really dollars wise there's not a huge difference, so the 370 was my pick. Now I'm marrying that up with a AE4705 WB aerial. So these are the heavy duty fiberglass aerials. They have a heavy duty spring base and the fiberglass whip. These AE4705s are 1.2 meters tall, and the whip itself is removable. So if at some stage I break a whip or I want to change colors or whatever, you can unscrew it from the base, leave the base connected to the car, and put a different whip on it, which is pretty cool. I've gone for the cool little unique color scheme, which is a black base and a white top. You can get them all in white, all in black, you can get them in pink, you can get them in sandy taupe. And now ARB and GME are doing a promotion where they're doing a blue aerial, which is to support Beyond Blue and helping people with mental issues such as depression. So that's a great little thing. Good on your GME and good on your ARB. Anyway, this is the aerial I'm going to be using. It's going to be mounted on the bull bar. Comes with all your coaxial cable and stuff, which obviously then runs into the car. So that's what I've chosen to use on this one here. Now the other little, that's basically all you really need for a UHF is a UHF and then the actual aerial where you're going to mount it. There's a bunch of different options you can go with either, different brands, different sizes. I've also chosen to get one of these. So this is a little pass-through connector. These ones are specific to the 200 series dash and fit in the blanks there. So essentially what I'm going to do is pull out one of the blanks that are in the dash at the moment, and this just pops in direct factory replacement. It has two little wires on there for lighting up the actual logo. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do, keep it all nice and neat, because the idea of what I'm doing here is the unit, the UHF unit will sit behind the dash. I'm yet to find a place for that. I'm going to pull the dash apart and have a look. You won't see the unit. All you will see will be the handpiece, and the handpiece itself you can unplug from the unit and put in your glove box when you're not using it if you want to. Now, if you're just running cables through the dash or want to join and stuff, it looks a little bit messy. So some people will usually have them sort of coming out from, say, where the carpet is, or you can use a in-dash plug like this one to make it look quite factory. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I've got some other bits and pieces here. So these are like little parts. This is a connector, like a joiner for your RJ45 cable. And I've also got an extra length of cable because I'm not really sure where I'm going to mount it yet. I've seen in the 200 series people either mount them behind the dash, in the center console, or I've even seen some mounted right in the back where my ARB compressor is in the wing there behind the plastics. If there's really a hard time trying to find room to fit the unit in the dash, that may be an option. So I've got some extra cable if I need to do that, but we won't know yet. So that's my essential mod. The other one, which I thought was quite essential, is I've gone and put an exhaust on the big 200. As you know, the 200 does come with a twin turbo 4.5 litre turbo diesel V8, twin turbo diesel I should say, producing a million squillion horsepowers. And even from standard, mine has the DPFs on it, but even from standard, it still sounded quite nice when I put the foot down, well, compared to the Prado anyway. It was great, but I just thought, you know, there's probably a little bit more we can get out of this, and not in terms of power or anything, but maybe we can make it sound a little bit nicer, or at least be able to hear it more of the time. So I've got myself a Manta. It's a 3-inch all the way to 4-inch tailpipes exhaust. It's got twin tips on it, so it comes around the spare tire on the back, and it's got twin like chrome tips, stainless steel tips on it. Looks awesome. It removes the 2 factory mufflers, so you'll have your center muffler there, and then there's usually one out right near the tailpipe on the factory exhaust. Removes those straight through from the DPFs. It's aluminized steel. I chose to go that over stainless because of A, cost, and B, I've heard that stainless steel exhausts are more prone to cracking. Have never personally had any experience with them, but just on hearing that and the cost, I went, you know, I'll go aluminized. It may like rust a little bit earlier, but a lot of factory exhausts are made from mild steel and aluminized steel, and they seem to last quite a long time. So now I was going to do a bit of a spiel. I had recorded a full spiel at the start, saying why I've done it, why I've done this and what. And then I went and installed the exhaust, and of course I went to check it again, and all the audio was just rubbish. So I'm going to put up a quick little shot of me taking off the factory exhaust and starting to put on the Manta exhaust. But you're going to have to wait until we finish doing this before I show you what the Manta exhaust sounds like, because it's meaty without sounding undignified, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, we're going to jump straight into it. I'm going to pull the dash apart. We're going to look at installing the unit in the car. The aerial obviously is quite easy to mount on the bull bar, and then we're going to run our coaxial cable through. And we're going to go through everything to do with that, and then right at the end I'm going to show you the difference between the standard exhaust and the big boy Manta exhaust. So stay tuned guys, let's jump into it. Very windy today. So we're going to be putting the aerial on first, because, well, I think it looks cool and I'm really excited to get it on, and that way at least if I look at the car I can think that I've made a bit of progress. So this is how the aerial is going to come straight out of the box. You'll have a little plastic cover that sits on the bottom here, which is where your nut and the coaxial cable, and there's a little spring washer in there as well will sit. That's all going to come off. I then need to feed the coaxial cable through the mount in the bull bar. So this is an ARB Summit bar for the 200 series. They've got aerial tabs on the left and right hand side of the center bar. On the old Prado I actually had it out of the wings here, but there's not enough room and I don't want to have to drill into this brand new fancy bar, so I'm going to use one of these here. It does sit a little bit more central in my line of vision, but I think it's just something I'm going to get used to. So I'm going to get putting this one in, and then what I'm going to do is I think run the cable straight into the grill. It's a fairly short section, otherwise I have to kind of run it down and around, and I think it's going to stand out. So I'm just going to get this mounted first, and then we'll go from there. Then going to pass my nut and my spring washer back through the coaxial cable so it's on the other side of that mount, and then I can tighten it all down and it'll be done. But you do get a fair length of coaxial cable with these antennas. Some other antennas you can actually remove the coaxial cable from the antenna, which some believe is a good or a bad thing. I've always run the GME antennas and I found them really good, so I'm like, you know, when you're on a good wicket you may as well stick with it. I think these Oricom or RFI antennas, I think you can remove the coaxial cable from the actual antenna base, but in this instance it just means one extra step to mounting it, which isn't the end of the world. What I'm going to try and do is there's a little grub screw, I can show it, this little silver thing here which actually holds the antenna whip in and kind of locks it in, so it sits on a thread and that grub screw goes in and holds it all into place. So what I'm going to try and do with that is face it towards the windscreen, or actually probably even slightly out, because otherwise it'll be a bit of a distraction, but essentially I don't want to see it from when I'm looking at the car, so I'm going to slightly turn it away, probably have it sitting about there. See if I can find it. They don't make this easy, do they? Resorted to running a ring spanner all the way through this coaxial cable to try and line it up. Not sure if it's correct. There we go. Oh, jeez. Not for desperate measures, I think.
Several bad puns later.
Well, welcome back. There's a bit of a break in me recording all the work thanks to my phone running out of batteries midway through recording a video file, and as such when I recharged the phone, the video file was all corrupted. So that basically showed me pulling the coaxial cable through the firewall, and now I'm going to run it under the dash. And I've basically been talking to the camera, talking about finding spots to mount the XRS unit, but it's been a little bit harder than I thought. I thought, oh, I'll hide it in here, I'll hide it in there, but it just never really worked. I wasn't quite happy with it, so I got a bit extreme and had a look around for some extra room, and I'll show you what's happened. Like, that's now my dash. That center console was out, and there's just bits of dash everywhere. So yeah, that's been fun. Haven't broken anything yet, which is nice. But what I did find is behind where the screen goes, so usually there's the kind of computer, I suppose you'd call it, would be all under there where that flashing red light is. And then on top there is where the big screen sits, and you can see the holes for the air vents either side. But behind where that screen is, there's a massive cavity where there's just nothing. And on top you can see there's the fancy speaker. Thank God for getting a VX. Hashtag elite life. And what I found was that with the XRS, you can actually just about sit it in there, and the screen still goes back into place, and she's good as gold. So that's great, because it means that it's still a good line for my coaxial cable and power cables to run through. And then it's also pointing that way, and I can actually mount my switch under the dash to where my left knee is going to be. So what I'm going to do now is basically mount that into place, that when you push the screen on, it pretty much holds the whole thing together, but I'm going to secure it a little bit better. It's a little bit hard to show you because there's all this stuff behind the dash, but that's where we're at the moment. If you are interested in seeing a really good video on how to pull apart the dash on these facelifted 200 series, check out EC Offroad. They've got a video there showing exactly how to pull apart this dash. They do it day in, day out, and as such, they're really knowledgeable about it. This is literally my first time, so I don't really want to pretend like I know what I'm doing. But I followed their video, and it was quite easy. And being a Toyota, everything came apart quite easy, which is either a good or a bad thing, depending if you're a Nissan fan or not. And yeah, here we are. That's better. So there's the unit there. I've just wrapped it in some like adhesive backed foam tape to kind of insulate it and stop it rattling. Secured down the bottom with the bracket, the coaxial cable. I've got heaps of it, so it's all bundled up there. Up the back, connection nice and secure, and it's run down behind the dash there. So what we're going to do next is we'll probably set up the actual outlet on this little dash thing. Get that all sorted, and I'll show you how good that is. Right, pretty much done with the install now. Obviously dash has to go back together, but we've knocked off a few of the major steps. So the actual outlet for the XRS comes out down here where my left knee is. That way it's nice and easy for me to plug my microphone cord in there when I need to use it. Apart from that, it'll just sit out of the way in the glove box more than likely, or the center console. until I need to use it. The actual mount for where I'm going to hang the microphone on when it's in use, I still haven't decided exactly where I'm going to put it. A few people have put it kind of here or here or even down here. Not just sure as of yet, and I'm going to cross that bridge when I get to it, because usually when I'm using the UHF, I tend to have my hand on it, or I'll have it on my knee or something like that, so I'll cross that bridge a little bit later, but I reckon it's probably going to go maybe there. No idea. Anyway, the main unit is all in there ready to go. That extra bit of RJ45 cable is all kind of looped up there, comes down, meets to the back of here. I took a little bit longer to sort of do everything because I also wanted to run some power cables and the dash illumination cable as well. So I picked up the dash illumination signal from behind the start button. Behind there's a little button that holds all this together, a little connector. On the back of that there's a red wire, a tiny little red wire, and if you go around with the multimeter and you check them all, basically that one turns on and off with the dash light, and I wanted it to be sort of mainly visible, and it draws next to no power anyway, so even if it's on for a little bit longer than other dash lights may be on, I'm perfectly happy with that. So that also runs the XRS outlet. The other thing I did is I've also mounted in here the steady dual USB outlet for the 200 series. I've taken out the one that does the multimedia for the stereo. I don't use it. Bluetooth is where it's at, and if I really want to run USB or aux or anything like that, the actual outlet thing is just sitting behind these panels, so I'll just extend them out to where I want to run them, and then that's, you know, all done and dusted. So they're there. They wanted a dash illumination light for that, so I wanted to wire all that in and also run my 12 volt for my USBs. I've chosen to run these USB outlets on constant 12 volt power, so it comes straight from the battery to here through a little 5 amp fuse under the bonnet, and essentially that means that if I'm going to charge things on here, it's a very small current draw. I can charge them whether the car's on or off, and having dual batteries, or the dual starting batteries under there, is really not a huge issue for, you know, charging a USB. It's a very small amount of power it's going to take, so I took a little bit longer to route everything and figure out how that's all going to work. Now it's all done and dusted, I'm very happy with it. So this is the actual screen. We're going to mount that back in place. So I'm going to put all the plugs on the back, because there's 3 plugs you can see on there. 1, 2, 3. And all that does is mount on top there, kind of get everything lined up. Oops, that's just, no, they're not lined up. There we go. That goes in, that one there. And there we go, stereo's back in. Now that UHF unit, I'm just going to check it if I can feel it around the corner. There she is. And that's firmly wedged in place as well. That little bit of foam tape does help with that. We'll put our little vents back in as well. That side. Line up all the clips first. Boom. That one in there too. That's done, and then we've got our top panel. This one here's also got a little wire here, which is for your day-night sensor thingy, light sensor on the dash. I think it also does for the window wipers as well, but that's what I found so far. You know, they're lined up. A bit of a blink. Done. And there it is, dash all back together. So the UHF, where's that gone? So there's my XRS handpiece, and all I need to do is just take my RJ45 cable and plug that straight into there. And this should, if I hold the power button down, that's awesome. So what I'm probably going to do there is whenever I need to, I'll probably have that stuck there. Probably there, I reckon I'll go there. And then when I'm not using it, after a four-wheel drive trip, or I've got a big highway coming up, unplug it, goes in the glove box, don't see it anymore. So one thing I didn't really explain was my preference to use constant power for the UHF versus switched power. There are two schools of thought in that. Obviously switched power is only going to come on when the car's on, so you're not going to drain your battery. But then there's also constant power, so you can always use the UHF. These UHFs obviously just turn off completely, so they're not going to use any power. But obviously when they're using power, it's a very small amount. I think there's like a 2 amp fuse or something that is supplied for the UHF, so it's next to nothing that they're going to draw. My train of thought and what I choose to do is I have constant power to my UHF. That way, no matter what, I don't have to start the car. If I lose the keys, I can still use the radio. It's just a bit of a fail-safe, I suppose, in emergency situations. I did it on the Prado, and the Prado had a unit up here in the roof console, and I could turn it on and off anytime I wanted, which was great because it meant that when you're at camp, you didn't have to find your keys if you needed to get on the UHF and contact someone trying to find you in the bush. And I prefer to keep it that way in this car. I don't really see any strong downsides to it, so I'm going to continue doing it. So you can do what you would prefer to do, whether you run it off a switched power or off a constant power, but for me, constant power is where it's at. And just in case you thought I'd forgotten, how bloody awesome is that? So that pretty much wraps it up. So that's the GME XRS-370 installed in the car. You also had the pleasure of hearing the new note of the 200, which is all thanks to a DPF back Manta 3-inch twin exit exhaust into 4-inch tailpipes. Just removes the center and that rearmost muffler, and I think it just sounds sweet. Even when you're driving around normally, it still sounds very refined. Doesn't sound too obnoxious, but when you put your foot down, you definitely hear the extra rumble, which I just love. I'm not looking forward to my fuel economy in the next few weeks, but I am looking forward to the sound. So thank you very much for watching this episode of Offroad Crusader. If you want to check out more, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I also have my Instagram page as well. Check down in the description for all the links to those. There's a Facebook page. If you're really keen and you want to jump on with all the other cool people who are supporting Offroad Crusader via Patreon, make sure to also check out the link down below as well, because there's some cool stuff happening there. If you want to get early access to videos and be able to message me directly to talk and ask questions and all the rest of it. So I'm going to get inside. It's a very chilly night here down in the southwest. Luckily we've had a day of no rain, so I think yeah, it's going to be burgers for dinner tonight. So thanks a lot guys, I'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers.